Hey, Lord of the Rings fans, New Better Do Better here. And listen, man, after a very long hiatus, we are back, man. But we're back, and we're better than ever. We have capitulated. We have joined forces. We have gotten this channel to a place where it needed to be. And we have so many creators that are part of the fray now. And Voices of Arda is that thing now. It's not only just a podcast, it is a super structure. It is like some kind of Morbius blob like Sauron is in Rings of Power season two.
Who?
You know what I'm saying? So
Just
we're
goofing
lit.
our way through life.
We are the goop. We are here. So you know what I'm saying? Your host, New Better Do Better, along with co-host who is really the main host, KaliCosplay, the queen. Everybody clap it up for Kali because she deserves it at all
Oh.
times. What up, Kali?
Hi,
Kali,
everyone.
big shout out to Kali and Bart of Arda, especially these two have put their minds together and they have made this channel over on YouTube. You know, we have this podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, so on and so forth. But particularly on YouTube, they have made this channel a force, and we have so many other creators that are now a part of the channel, and you can see their wonderful content creation, their thoughts on Tolkien, their wonderful funny videos, their informative videos. We have people speaking Elvish. We have people from England. Weird, but people from England are there. Now what's up? And so we're going to get into that. But right now we have a very, very special episode for you guys. Callie, take it away.
All right. So thank you everyone who has followed along with us as we covered season 2 of Rings of Power with the Podwans podcast. We had our watch parties and our episode discussions every week for the past 6 weeks or so. And we didn't feel right about closing out the season without doing a review of the whole thing. So we are here now with a couple of special guests. I realize if you're listening and not watching, it can sometimes be hard to figure out who is talking when. So I'm going to let each of the guests introduce themselves and where their social media is so you can get used to their voice and so you can know when they're coming and speaking on their turns. So let us start with Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete. I go by Belmont, LOTR. I'm on social media. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Pete. Pete's also helped us a lot over the Rings of Power coverage and has been helping a lot now behind the scenes for our production stuff. So that is really great. Thank you, Pete. We have Minhas.
Hi, everybody. I'm Minhas. I go by Minhas Smorgel on all platforms. Yes, the pun was intended. It is great to be here, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Minhas. We have Ryan.
Hey, I'm Ryan. I'm known as the TolkienToker. You can find me at the TolkienToker on TikTok and underscore the TolkienToker on Instagram. Because some fool has my name and I don't have the courage to
Mm.
message him and get it back. So
Do a community effort. We need a community effort here.
community
Do we?
effort.
I'll message at the same time.
Group message.
And the voice that you will probably have no trouble recognizing throughout this panel, we have Lee.
Hello, I'm Lee. I'm known as SilmarilLeanne on TikTok, Threads, and Instagram.
Tim, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tim. I go by Bart of Arda on all socials. You can check me out on TikTok and Instagram, but most importantly, on the Voices of Arda YouTube channel. Join the party, everybody. All of your favorite
Nice.
Lord of the Rings content creators.
All right, so very quickly to open the discussion, does anyone have any thoughts they want to share on how season 2 was compared to season 1?
So good. Like,
Right.
uptake. And I hate saying that because everyone's like, well, I like season 1. I loved season 1. I watched season 1 so many times, which is like a shameful amount of times I've watched season 1. And then the fact that I'm saying season 2 is so much better really speaks volumes to that because honestly, whoa, what a season.
Season 1 laid a good foundation. And I think season 2 turned it up a notch. It was dramatic. It was dark. It was intense. It was gory at times. I love that. There was a feeling that there's more at stake. And any hope of evil not being there is now gone. It is here and it's not going anywhere. And we know how this ends. So buckle up.
I think season 2 was absolutely much better, much more focused. I think We got better performances. I think everything was just turned up a notch. Where we laid a lot of foundation in season one, but things were a little in disarray with certain things. Some of the writing wasn't as good and as strong, and I think they really were much more focused on the story they wanted to tell in a singular way, and it came across much better in season two. I love the world building in season one, but it really pays off in season two. So I really, really think that after watching season two and you go back and watch season one, you might even like season one better because of season two. That's how good season two was. So absolutely.
Yeah, and season two in itself, like one of the main reasons I find it so much better than season one was because of it felt more intimate. And that was definitely due to a change of directors and change of direction, where at times season one felt, I don't want to use this word lightly, but it felt a little vapid, where it's like certain things just didn't add up or just felt more surface level. Not saying that season two doesn't have moments where it's like very fan servicey, but it was just like awesome fan service along with great storytelling. And it felt more of a melded thing rather than this forced thing that season one was trying to like almost play catch up with itself to give us that foundation we needed to enjoy the show.
Yeah, it felt like they really hit their stride with series two. They found what works and what maybe doesn't work as well. So, because most shows, like the first series is quite often like a bedding in phase where they're finding out, and and yeah, series two just built on that and was just vastly superior. And I did like series one. So again, as Minhas says, that's a testament to how good series two was. Like it's found its way now, and it was just incredible.
It definitely was. I feel like I summed it up in one phrase that I kept using, and I would yell, "They fixed it!" whenever I saw something in season two that I was like, yes, okay, I'm liking this now. So yeah, I think we're all very happy about it. Let's dive right in, and we're going to I guess I didn't know how to organize this conversation, but by like groups, I guess, rather than locations. So let's start with the elves. Let's start talking about their story kind of and how it unfolded over season two.
I think we start off with the big chase. Obviously, Galadriel is getting chased by Elrond, and he's like, "Yo, man. Oh, look, she's chasing Elrond, rather. Sorry." And she's like, "Yo, the rings, like we need them." And this was an interesting turn here because at the end of season one, we see Elrond like kind of find the scroll, and I think we're under the assumption that he knows, what happened, and he's like, not going to say anything. But then it turns out that he's like, nah, bump that. Like, this is evil. Like, nah, let's like, and I liked that because it was kind of curious to me at the end of season one. And I was like, okay, I understand how they're going to keep this secret and it's going to make the story, because we're all like, well, if they know about they know that Sauron did it, like, where's the mystery and what's going on? So because that's a deviation from the story. And I'm like, well, how are they going to handle this now? And they just dived right into it. And they said, you know what? Since we made these three first, we're just going to dive right into it. And Sauron, they're going to know Sauron did it, but Elrond's completely against it. He's not for it. So now it's not two people who are like, oh, he knows, exactly what's going on. You know what I'm saying? He's under the impression like something's going on here. I'm not 100% sure. These rings are evil. Like, and then Galadriel has to expound upon it. And he's like, no, absolutely not. These rings are no good. So it gives some balance there, as opposed to both of them are like against Gilgalad as far as with the rings, and it would have been silly. I think that approach.
I did start getting just really annoyed by Elrond. I'm not gonna lie.
I have the complete opposite opinion. I loved Elrond in season two. He's one of my favorite elves. But feel free, go ahead, tell me why you didn't like.
I think maybe it was just the writing laboring a bit, but like when she uses Nenya to heal Camnia, I think his name is, and then she takes the ring off and gives it to Elrond so that it's not going to fall into Adar's hands as she like covers their escape. And you think, oh, okay, this is the point where he's going to see that there's goodness in the rings, but then he's still saying, no, the ring is bad, and she didn't do it for us, she did it for the ring. And it's like, mate, come on, that's not what happened.
I think one of the things that Rings of Power, and I talk about this a lot on my page, is that what we see is not what the characters see, and the writers of this always hone that in. they always be like, hey, what you know, these characters don't know. So whenever you're asking why we know this, why are they doing that? The answer is always the characters don't know. Like, why did Elrond kiss Galadriel? He marries the daughter.
He
He
doesn't know that.
that.
No, that's very fair.
I champion that so much because I literally was on a podcast saying the same thing.
I will say the kiss put us where it answered some questions for the fans that know what happens, where we are in the story in terms of a timeline, as far as like, clearly Celebrian and Elrond are just not a thing.
But the show got leaked pretty good with a possible Celebrian psych out.
I know. I was with you, Lee. I was with you there. I was like, wait, is this a distraction? And then threw off the thing. And I was like, oh, no,
We're like, no.
Okay, then.
never mind.
I love that. I was wondering what I noticed, I had went to an event and the show runners were there and somebody brought the theory up and they made a funny face and now I see why. and I'm like, oh, you mother lovers. Like, yo, that's funny. Okay, that's okie doke right there. Cause I was like, oh, maybe this is Lee's theory coming to fruition. Like, this is dope. Like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I can see that maybe. And then they were like, nah, expectations killed. Like, nah, she's killed. She's out of here. But I loved that they did that because it's so Sauron. It's so, I was using you. You were mean.
They're deceiving us.
It was so sudden, and it was genuinely a shock moment because it was just so sudden and out of nowhere and brutal. And I know I've said this before, but it breaks my heart that she died thinking it was Celebrimbor that killed her. Like, that breaks my heart.
Gil-galad said in the season, if you trust Sauron, he now has the ability to control you. So that kind of she had his trust. So then she was done.
And we got to remember who Sauron is. I think this show makes us, because of the Halbrand thing, makes us forget who we're dealing with. And people don't realize how powerful he is. But I love the magic that they allow him to use. It's like, power-wise, he makes this man believe he's in another world. He controls the weather. If you guys, I say this all the time, when he wants Mordania to feel for him, and so Celebrimbor will let him in the city, if you look up when he's looking sad down at the ground, the weather is literally forming in the sky. Oh, he destroyed the bridge. Yes, absolutely. He destroyed the bridge.
Thunderbolt. The thunderbolt at just the right moment, so Celebrimbor would get up to close the door, so he could sneak over to the forge to make his big entrance.
It's awesome. Like, literally,
it's so dramatic.
These powers, we gotta understand who we're dealing with. But remember, Sauron's doing it subtly. He's not like, oh, fire, storms, He's doing it subtly because he's trying to get these rings done.
They did him so well, showing these facets of Sauron that we haven't seen before, and that there is more nuance to him than you would think. But yeah, showing how powerful he is, and also, as I said, the cruelty. Like, they didn't call him Gorthaur the Cruel for nothing, and just the complete casual way that he got rid of Myrddania, because it benefited him to do so. And as I say, she died thinking that, obviously, the effect that had on Celebrimbor, that it had been his hands that had done it, just all that. And yeah, just like the casual cruelty of it. And also the fact that, like, when he is with Celebrimbor's, I think he does genuinely believe that it's Celebrimbor's fault, because if you would just do what I said, I wouldn't have to be doing these things to you. And he genuinely believes that.
That was the best part of the entire freaking series so far, is a relationship between Sauron and Celebrimbor. Sauron's manipulation was on point. His acting, Celebrimbor's acting, his fall, the powers of Sauron, the need for Sauron to, hey, let's get these rings out, and why to these people, and his belief of it. Celebrimbor's questioning it, and every time the gaslighting, yo, bro, just do what bro, like, you did this to yourself. Like, if you would have just listened, I know what's best type situation, was phenomenal. I loved every second of that. I loved Celebrimbor's realization, because it shows he always had a good heart. he's trying to strive for better things for his people, and that led to his downfall, but he always was coming from a good place. And he always questioned, he pushed back against Sauron.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. I love Sauron's cruelty, his complete and utterance. Like he just, I don't even care what you're saying, bro. I don't have no regard for what you're saying. It's all about me. The narcissism is on full display, and he even admires Celebrimbor, but he's sad because he's like, damn, bro, like I gotta kill you because you just don't even listen. Like you're not listening. You're doing this to yourself. It's sad. And when that tear comes, it's like, yo, I actually admire your work and your skill. Like we both come from the same cloth. We both are smiths. We both revere Aule. We both are students of him. And look what you made me do type situation. And it's like, oh, like you're so wrong, but you're so in your minds, you're so right. And
They're both stuck in the legacy of someone bigger and more powerful than them as well.
exactly, man. People also questioned Sauron and Morgoth's relationship as to when Sauron said, have you ever been tortured by a god?" People were like, "Well, he wasn't tortured by Morgoth." That's absolutely not true. The fear that is instilled in Sauron when Luthien says, "Hey, man, if I tell Morgoth about this and that you failed, you're gonna forever be in his scorn." And he was so scared of that, and because he knows how Morgoth does, he knows, he's felt it before. He's like, I'm not even going back there. I'm not even going back to Angband. And he goes and hides.
Can I just say so? That line, the way he delivered that line, do you know what it is to be tortured by a god? Was absolutely chilling. That delivery of it. And what I loved about that line is, for a moment, you feel sympathy for Sauron. Even Celebrimbor, you see it in his face, the way he's like,
Like, no.
no, I can't imagine. Like he's even feels sympathy for Sauron, and it lasts for a moment because literally, the next thing Sauron says is, "But now you're making me do this to you," and it's like, there we go. It just evaporated like that. Like for 1 second, there was a thing of like you see these tiny glimpses of what Sauron could be, but then he just throws it away, and he goes back to being this like twisted, cruel, evil person. And I think that's even more of a tragedy to it, is he could be so much better.
I also loved seeing those moments of Sauron that like it was like his past self almost, because Sauron wasn't irredeemable at first. So seeing him, especially that first episode, all those chances, like they wanted the audience to know, listen, you have a chance. You could make a decision. You don't have to do this. The interaction with the old guy on the ship and everything like that. It was just beautifully put to kind of almost humanize him and give him that irredeemable factor for the audience to know he's not like totally evil either. I love that they added that notion too.
Yeah, it's like a big theme.
That he's not wholly evil. A lot of people are having trouble with that. Of course, they're having trouble with the orcs not being wholly evil. A lot of people are not really being able to understand that this is how Tolkien actually wrote them. I know we're getting the evil orcs, of course. We understand that orcs are evil in the sense of the ones that are going to war are following Sauron in the sense of they're the bad guys. So that's how you're looking at it. And you're looking at it like evil. They're the bad force. But what he means more so is that, hey, they aren't inherently evil. They are being driven to war. We see instances where they're like, yo, I don't want to do this, my guy. We know that in the Return of the King, they're like, yo, man, like, yo, if this guy lose, we could just go off and we can be our own thing with no big bosses pushing us. That is in the writing in the books. So if it's there and they're showing it here, it connects. It's a through line.
And correct me if I'm wrong, in Minas Morgul, the orcs in Minas Morgul also, like, they don't consider themselves like Sauron or
Oh yeah,
orcs.
they don't even like the Mordor
factions. Yeah,
there's different factions and things like that. Some of them are like, they don't talk crazy, but they're like kind of like, man. And we see the Uruk-hai, they don't even care about Sauron. They're like, yo.
In regards to the show, though, how there is the different factions of orcs that we know of and like all the infighting between them, I'm wondering if, like, in terms of the show universe, if that's going to be another thing that Sauron does, because that would ever stop them ever like rebelling and turning against them if they're always fighting each other. Because he's seen like when they're united, like they were under Adar, they can actually achieve something, and he's going to not want that to happen again. So another part of what he's going to do would be creating factions amongst the orcs so that they hate each other, so that can never happen again. A figure like Adar can never rise up and unite them ever again. Which I think is just another brilliant layer that the show has added to it overall, to both Sauron and to the orcs.
Uruk.
Uruk.
Uruk, I apologize.
Uruk,
I apologize.
Did we talk enough about Sauron and Galadriel? We were kind of talking about Anatar and Celebrimbor.
I feel we saw a lot of how Galadriel has grown as a character. A standout point for me was when she is in the orc camp and she sees them doing like their funeral rites, and you can tell that she's surprised to see it because of what she's felt about orcs. But you can tell like how she is like taking it in and is moved by it, and there's like some realization there that these people aren't just the creatures that she thought they were. And it was felt like far removed from in the first series when she's in Adar's face telling him how she's basically gonna genocide all his children. And I think that showed a lot of her growth as well. And then like, you know, her conversation with Arondir, where she gets him to you know, to not go and get himself killed by attacking Adar. And yeah, there was just, I think it's highlighted how Galadriel has grown as a character and is slowly becoming the Galadriel that we know from the Third Age. I think another key part of that was what Celebrimbor was saying to her about light and how strength doesn't defeat it, light does. And then it ending with her dressed in white and almost seeming to have a bit of a glow about her, as like she is now becoming and inspired by Celebrimbor's words to become Galadriel, Lady of Light.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly. What about you, Belmont? What are your thoughts?
Galadriel has always been like kind of problematic for me, where the like how to characterize her is something that I think Tolkien even had trouble doing. Where we're dealing with characters who the elves and their even like their own cycles like take years to reach maturity. And I think people forget that when they watch this show is yes, she is quite an old being that we know that like she was born in the year of the trees, but at the same time she's dealt with a lot. And she dealt with a lot in the first stage, and she's dealing with a lot here between the loss of her husband and the loss of her family and the idyllic. And I always go back to the line in the first episode of season 1 where she says, then elves learned what death was, or like something along those lines. Then we knew what death was, like, and they had never known it prior to that. And it's such a weird concept. And I love that because like we see it play out through all of Galadriel's story, this idea of loss, this idea of giving up the past, moving forward, seeing something larger, but still carrying this pain. And it's with Theo's conversation in season 1 that I find parallels now with the Arondir, because this is the same thing she was going through. She wanted revenge for what happened to Finrod. That's why she was looking for Sauron in the first place. And she sees it in someone else, Arondir now. And it shows this amazing growth. We now see this arc almost coming to its apex, its pinnacle. We see now a character who's going to be that same Lady of the Wood who sees more beyond herself and what this world and what could be.
To everyone's point, I mean, the arc of Galadriel is finally starting to hit that, like Peach just said, right, like getting to the apex of it. When she gives up the ring, and then decides to side with the orcs, everything to defeat evil, not to get revenge, because there's no glory for Galadriel in her dying for no reason after their confrontation. It is strictly to remove a piece that he could use in his plans to continue his evil. She's really gone from this character that just wanted strength and power to get her revenge to somebody who is willing to throw it all away to be a light in the darkness.
I love all your points. And what I'm hoping for in season 3 with Galadriel is for her to move forward and to take the knowledge that she has and start moving in a different way. Hopefully we can see her use the ring more and start to see some of that enchantress side that everybody's looking for. And I know it's not all about fan service, but it's just the transition of her growth and her being okay. I can't handle things this way. Let me take what Celebrimbor told me and use it and use this to protect. Hey, I can't be a part of every situation. Hey, these just like how Elrond is kind of like, you know what? This is for these people in the Lord of the Rings. He's like, hey, this isn't for the elves this time. This is not for us. This is set in motion, and this is for these people to handle. And it's just our job to help facilitate that. I want to see Galadriel more in that role, be an enchantress. I'll help here, and I'm gonna help facilitate this. I'm gonna be a lady of advice, of light, of wisdom, and we see that moving forward, or her even learning that is where I'd like for it to go. Then we'll be where we need to be, I think, with her, and people will understand the arc completely.
A big part of Galadriel's season 2 story did also have to do with Adar, and I feel like we need to talk about him very quickly before we say goodbye to him. So does anybody have any farewell thoughts about our dear friend Adar?
I'm glad they approached it the way they did. They never told you who he was. They kept it not in a mystery box, but they kept it like on the side to the point where I see you rolling your eyes, Tim. But they kept it to the side where it's like it's not a huge focus of the story.
We could have just left out the dramatic pause after my name. I'm grabbing Jeff. I'm like, he's gonna say that. It doesn't matter.
But like it doesn't matter. It's not, because it's about the influence out on Adar. And I like how they kind of brought light to that with like being on the nameless peak drinking, the reddest wine, and like he drank deeply. I love that. That felt very Tolkien. I don't know why, for at least me. It's just,
and onto that point where if we did get a name like one of the ones that many of us have hypothesized of who Adar could be, it would take away from the story that they're trying to tell. Because what does Adar being Maglor do to his story about being the father of the orcs? It does absolutely nothing other than make us go, oh, it's Maglor. We can talk about him.
I was kind of like glad that Adar arc came to an end. I thought he was a great character, but it started muddling, the rest of the story up with who is Adar. He should not, honestly, I didn't want him to be any of the, great old elves, anything like that. I wanted him to just be one of the elves that were taken. And we needed Sauron to be able to come into his own with the orcs. And it was holding this back into that regard. And I liked how it gave credence to the orcs' origin and the orcs' importance, but then it also was holding Sauron's, because eventually it's going to be about Sauron's journey and what he's doing, and he needs them as his main force. And so we needed it to come to an end. I'm glad they got to it. I think he did a phenomenal job, both actors. And I like that they had him have a redemption arc at the end. I like that, but I just thought it was time for the story to come to an end. So I was glad it ended where it ended.
I really feel like Adar's storyline achieved what it needed to do, which was to give us an emotional connection to the orcs, especially for the reason that we do know that coming up, the orcs are going to be without Sauron's presence. So we're going to see how the orcs are by themselves without an Adar, without a Sauron, and what they do in that time, which is something that now that having like an emotional connection to an orc like Glug, who's murdered by Sauron like instantaneously, to seeing them on their own and like, well, what do they do if they're not under the thraldom of a Dark Lord?
They open restaurants and make menus.
I do wonder if they are going to keep following the orcs. It's just that if they do, they're going to have to create a new character, because obviously Adar's gone, but the only other orc character that had been established to any great degree with Gluk, who is also gone. So it's like, who would we follow if they were going to continue showing us the orcs? So I don't know if that aspect of the story is going to be carried forward.
I would like to see the baby.
Oh.
The rise of Glug Jr.
Tim, your time has come for dwarves. Talk to us about the dwarves.
If you've been online looking at reviews of people just, whether a huge fan of Lord of the Rings or a noob, saying how great Durin and Disa are, and the introduction of characters that we know and love like Narvi and their extended role in the show, it's been phenomenal to watch.
I love Durin and Disa, and hearing Disa sing, I'm so glad we got to see more of that because I think it's truly a phenomenal talent that she has. And honestly, I'm so enamored every time she sings. And when she uses that to activate, I'm going to use the term activate the bats.
Yeah, that was kind of
That
wild.
was dope. I was like, whoa.
I didn't love the bat activation. I was like, this is like Batman Beyond's right now. Like,
Yeah, it was so good.
The
Yeah.
dwarves always hit the hardest. They
Mhm.
always hit the hardest and they never miss. I think the preservation of their culture, I think the mountain failing them because Sauron has returned, I thought that was wild. I think that, the earth is like reacting to Sauron's return. I love that concept. And I think the way the ring affected King Durin was so noticeably different from the other rings of power. And, Sauron, the dwarves don't trust Anatar, so he doesn't really get his claws really in there. But he's going to, achieve his ends because it's going to cause chaos. And they look back and there's all the rings sitting there and they're like, we know what they are. We shouldn't use them. But it's like, what are we going to do? It's like this desperation, this decision that the dwarves are going to face.
I did like how when Sauron went to Khazad-dûm and just through Charlie Vickers' phenomenal acting where he seems to do nothing but conveys so much somehow that you could see Sauron like realizing that the ring wasn't affecting King Durin in the way he had intended it to and the way he had expected it to. So I like him seeing that. So it's not just Celebrimbor who's been surprised by it, but for bad reasons. It's not doing what Sauron expected it to do. I'd like that it's showing that it is a ring of power and it has other powers beyond just like making the dwarves greedy. Like, it's showing it like Durin can use it to find where the mithril veins are and things like that. Like it is a ring of power that has power. Do you know what I mean?
very good.
I think I think they I think they portrayed its effect on Durin like very well overall. Yeah, and I'm interested to see where it's going to go from here because it sounds like there's going to be a lot of like inter-dwarf conflict.
It's going to be interesting with Prince Durin and his brother. I thought that was an interesting thing to add. But I think I understand why they did it going forward because they do need to like have the dwarves still be in there. And especially because we're going to hit a point where, because Elrond and Durin are really good friends, and we already see the breaking of the alliances between elves and dwarves, and we have to get to that point, right? And it can't just happen all at once. So I think these things are what are going to like really bring the cracks in. Because the dwarves did eventually show up. Not when Elrond fully needed them, but they did come eventually.
Durin will come.
Right?
Durin will come.
Durin will come. Oh.
He did it. Everyone else
Listen,
did. He did it.
Yeah.
Broke my heart. Even I was like, Durin!
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I mean, I have a little prediction as far as the Balrog thing goes. I think that eventually we're going to have Galadriel come in through Moria because they're going to have to get to the other side of the Misty Mountains anyway to establish her realm. So I think she's going to put that bad boy to sleep for a while, and then he'll come back maybe later. I don't know what they're doing with this, if they're going to time. I have no idea what they're doing. But that's just something that's in my head.
So that scene with the Balrog, we all have to talk about it. Amazing, visually so amazing. Honestly, I love that, like that love for his son is what finally broke the spell. And I think that again, it's very Tolkien-esque, right? Like the one thing we all love about Tolkien is like love prevails all. So I thought that was definitely beautifully done.
I also just like, as we're all talking here, I had a thought where, isn't it interesting that the dwarvish rings of power, it allows them to find the weak parts of the mountain and where all the things are in the mountain. Who made these mountains that they're living in?
Yeah,
very interesting that
Morgoth.
maybe the theory that the rings of power tap you into Morgoth's ring, really shining through there, which I love.
Yeah,
and the dwarves do hold the belief that the mountains are evil. It's weird that they hold that as one of their myths. Like, yo, they Caradhras,
especially Caradhras. Yeah.
No love for elves and dwarves, none.
Yeah.
Can I circle back to Círdan? I just have to talk about Círdan because, I mean, first of all, he's amazing. He's like my favorite character. and we didn't get enough of him, and I'm like, oh, give me more, you know. But like, and here's a hot take, okay? Here's a hot take. I have a few hot takes, so I don't want to, stir things too much. But as far as the series, right now where we are, I would almost have preferred more Kierdan than Tommy B, because I think, first of all, he's waited 10,000 years for his big debut. I mean, let's be real. Come on, this poor guy. He shaved, and I was floored when that happened. But I think that I would have preferred him over Tommy B, because he is, after all, one of the ring bearers. I feel like we really need to like get to know these people more.
I agree with Kierdan as well. I wish we'd got more Kierdan.
You want to go to Numenor now? Okay, let's talk about oh man, we all hate our Farazan. I mean, like, I cannot, like, this show is so good at making me hate these characters. Like, I, to my core, just got upset looking at them. Like, him and his son, I was like, seriously? And even, like, the daughter, what did they name her?
Yadian, yeah.
Yadian. Oh, girl, come on. I was so pissed. Like, literally, I'm like, what are you doing? And then when she's, like, kind of dealing with her father, I actually, like, kind of got into a thing with someone on Tumblr. I know, ancient, but she was like, no, like, it makes sense what she did. Like, she's blinded by grief. She's blinded by grief. And I'm like, okay, but like, so are everybody in Numenor.
Yeah, so let's sell out your father and your brother and everybody else that you grew up with and then were raised by. And yeah, let's just.
Yeah, if this is because of your family, why are you hurting your family? Right?
I think she's gonna have an important thing. I think I heard on one of your Padawans podcasts about her building the temple of Morgoth.
Yeah.
She doesn't even mention her other brother Anarion too. She like does not care about him. Like, is he just like excommunicado to Andunier? They're just like, we don't care about him.
He's like a born again faithful. He's too much.
Yeah, that's what he is. He's like,
I do want to play devil's advocate and say she's doing it if you go off, I mean, I guess if we're going off what she's saying is, Dad, you're following this lady, she's the one that brought us over there, and this is why Isildur got killed, then it makes sense that she's upset with him in that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She didn't know Isildur had perished. She had taken the Palantir well before. She took it when Elendil was still alive, because that was the only way she had have gotten access to it. So that's the only thing I don't like wholly agree on. It's a weird storyline. She was already being influenced by Kemen. She saw her brother Isildur leave. It broke her heart. But she didn't know he was gone. But we also have to keep in mind that all these kids are somewhat damaged because they lost their mother in such a traumatic way.
Yeah, I think up to that point it's political views, honestly.
Yeah,
it's true.
She just doesn't agree. She doesn't have to agree.
It's just
politically.
And circling back to our Farazan, I mean, how many times does fate have to tell him, it's not you, dude, it's not meant to be? The man, he will not concede. He incited insurrection, and he's still got his hat in the ring. Who does that sound like? This is eerily familiar to me. It's like crazy to me.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it there.
That's so
I
funny.
also want to say, in like slight defense of Yardian, is that because she didn't want Elendil to do the whole trial by sea monster thing, and it says that like she went to Farazan and begged him to let Miriel come and talk to Elendil, which kind of been an easy thing for her to do, and she wouldn't have wanted Miriel to do it, but she knew at that point that Miriel would have had more power to, as she saw it, talk sense into Elendil than she did, and so she still did that and like put herself in that position to try to save him.
Yeah, I mean, I was being dramatic. Like, I do understand. I mean, it's not like she's completely evil. So I do agree, Lee. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't think she's completely insane. Right? I just was mad at her.
Yes, that's very
grief. In my grief.
I don't care what anyone says. I'm mad about Valandio and why she hasn't reacted to anything.
Yeah,
I
literally. I still think she doesn't know.
I don't think she knows either.
Yeah,
it's the only explanation.
Where's Valandio? You look for him?
Yeah, I know, right?
You wonder, hey, where's Valandio?
Yeah.
He's not sleeping in, guys.
Oh my God, I screamed when that scene happened. Because they gave us hope for a second. Just for a split second.
That was a beautiful scene with, was that Nienna? That was Nienna? Her statue, we're assuming, maybe, we're guessing.
Pete is Team Weenan.
there is a debate whether it's Nienna or Uinen.
I mean, like they worshipped. You look back in the text, and I hate when people try to argue this that like they would never refer to the Valar. Refer to the Valar all the time.
They've been.
And
They
yeah,
do
the
it all the
Numenor's
time.
in the description. Numenor and the Alderion and Arendis chapter, they definitely refer to the Valar all the time. It's probably, I would say it's Nienna. It's probably Nienna, but I want it to be Uinen because these are the individuals who like pretty much pray to her all the time. I enjoyed Numenor, but I feel like there's a little all over the place. Full context though, I know why they're being that way. They don't want to approach the strife between faithful and kingsmen to the same capacity they do in the story. One, it's thousands of years it takes for it to happen, and two, because the usurping of the throne is very outdated, we could say, which of course with Tolkien was fairly intentional. But I enjoyed Elendil and I enjoy Mael, and I love that we're meeting like not really other characters, but just creating more substance to Numenor, like depth, where it's like Elzagar, for example, or like we look back during the trial, and there's numerous people there. They're all standing on the cliffs. It's not just some 10 people who we've been following the whole time through
Yeah,
Numenor.
it feels bigger now.
Yes, it was definitely the complaint from the first season that you lived in the sprawling city that you can see behind me. Armenelo is supposed to be the most dense population on the island, and there's nobody around. So I'm glad they approached those aesthetic things, the visual aspects of it, because we're watchers watching a show. Visually speaking, it has to flip switches for us for it to become in tune or for us to relate to what we're watching. But Elendil, man, wow, talk about someone carrying like a whole plot on his back. Elendil and Lloyd Owen is like the best aspect of Numenor by far, by far. I love
Yep.
Isildur, but Isildur feels disjointed with the Estrad story and the Ents and Theo. And it's like, where are we going with you? Are you going back to Numenor, which he is? We saw that with everything going on there. We hope Beric is safe. But Elendil really epitomized what faithful is for me. And I love because his name means elf friend, of course. And it's like, here we are. This is Elendil. This is the Elendil now who is established as a father named Mondil, the last lord of Andunier, as well as Midiel saying you need to reclaim your lordship. Almost, a proclamation of what a sacred line the lords of Andunier are. So I'm really excited to see where they go with Numenor. I just think that like what they tried to do from the books felt messy, while the things where they leaned into more of the conceptuals, like the trial by sea, felt very, very good. It felt very strong and added a lot of character to Numenor.
Numenor finally felt a lot better. Still could use some work in the sense of what they're building toward, but this is where Pelargir comes into play. We see Kim and go over, and he's like, "Hey, this is a port," and we see it was already established, and we see, "Hey, now we're going to get some armament, and we're going to see the building of the fleet." And now it feels like, okay, let's build up Numenor to the heights that we thought it was. I know we don't have time to say, hey, this used to be the most vibrant and strongest kingdom, but that navy was so important. The strength that there needs to be, Sauron needs to be scared and jealous for a reason. And I've never got that feeling. But now, as they're starting to build up for our Pharazôn, which of course, because of the time crunch, we can't see the other kings that built Numenor to its heights, like Aldarion and Calimán and all these other kings that did that made the faithful, made the kingsmen, that caused the split, that caused the sundering, from the elves and the Valar. We got explanation from our Pharazôn when he's talking to Kemen. We see he kind of doesn't really fuck with Kemen like that. I kind of liked it that he was kind of like, yeah, well, show me, because your mother type situation. Like I really like that. Our Pharazôn using a Palantir, using that against Miriel, made a little sense to where now they're like, hey, why are we going against the faithful so hard? You know what I'm saying? Without those other explanations, it kind of sets in, gives a place for Sauron to come enter and worm his way into when he eventually does do that. We see that the crack has been opened for him to enter and him to take advantage. So I think Numenor is strengthening. It still needs a lot of work. We need to see Numenor at its height and then at its worst. So I think Pharazôn can bring it to a place where he's Pharazôn the Golden. It's at that super strong point, and they end up coming to help the elves out of sheer, I have to do this because Sauron is doing too much, and we don't want Sauron. We'd rather help the elves, even though we hate them. We hate Sauron more, and then we see them just go rock bottom after that, after taking Sauron. I think that's where it should lead to. So I think they're building toward that. Hey, Toker, I wanted to ask you this real quick. So one thing that I loved, and I wanted to see your take on it, because you have interesting takes all the time. I actually love what they did with Kim in this season because it strengthens his transition to possibly, we seeing how even, and I like that. I don't like him as a character in the sense
Yeah,
of, oh my God,
right.
he's so dope, but he is dope. That look how they got us to hate him, and it's valid. There's validity in it. Where in the first season, it's just like this guy's a goofball. He's an idiot. Like I was like, that's like, nah.
It's like
Are you trying to make him a
nepotism.
villain? Now he's
Yeah.
legitimately
Yes,
a
he
bad
is.
guy. And we're like, everybody's like on board. Like, even if you don't like Rings of Power, you're like, but I hate Kimmin. Like,
Yeah.
I hate him.
He's like the Cersei. He's like Cersei Lannister, but I have more respect for Cersei Lannister because she had more at stake. He's just nobody. So like,
Yeah.
I hate his guts. And here's my prediction. Here's my another hot take. I think that he says something about gathering timber in Middle Earth, which we know the Númenóreans did. He said, it's no big deal because after all, they're only trees. And everyone kind of is like, everyone's in on it. They're like, oh, they're not only trees. So I think he's going to get his just desserts by the Ents.
I hope so. Yeah.
That's what I think. I hope
Squish 'em.
so.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Ents, I think the Ents were beautiful. I mean, I'm such a nerd for Tolkien's descriptions about nature, his discussions about just the sanctity of life and things like that. So when I see the Ents, I think their scenes are so beautiful and they're so poetic, and I just love listening to them speak, first of all. And I just want more of them. And so Treebeard was a vital character in Lord of the Rings. I want Ents to be vital in this story because they are a race of Middle Earth too. They have their story to tell too, and they're affected by Sauron, hella affected. So I'm hoping that they dive more, and we could even follow some of these Ents around and see what's going on.
Yeah. The scene where she goes, "Yes, we know peace." My heart melted. I love that little speech they do, and then you see like Arondir and Theo hug, and they just like over this like amazing speech. I loved that scene so much, and I love that we find out Arondir is from the Greenwood, which is so, especially since he's kind of like a Legolas parallel, a lot too.
He's Sindarian too. He's born in Beleriand. I love
Yeah, he was
that
born in
fact
Beleriand.
because that's exactly what happens. Very accurate.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was I'm really like interested to seeing a lot more what happens with Arondir. I love this character. I'm so glad they added him in there. My brother was making fun of it, but not in a cheeky way. Not that he loves the series too, but he's like, at the end you have all these like high elves, right? Like royalty, lords, and then there's Arondir.
Yeah.
Why is
His
he
gray
there?
wooden.
It's like, yeah, I made it, guys. We made it.
I loved that they had him there with the very established, very important, and Arondir was there with them. I loved that they did that. It's like, yeah, we have this enough faith in our original character to put them in there with these characters. And also for just him as a character, I mean, I imagine he would have been like a bit like, oh my god, I'm standing up here with the High King of the Noldor, like it'd be a bit wild. But I really love that they had him there, like right there with them all.
I think it makes sense too, because Galadriel, he was like the only elf that fought with her at the fight of the Southlands, right? So I think they definitely do have this like strong connection. So it would make sense that he would be there as well, especially when she they were healing her, and he was there the whole time. Like I thought it was nice, and it was just like a funny like little cheeky comment that my brother was.
Distinct observation.
The advice she gives him also gave credence to her character. It really boosted her character where it needed to be as well. So I really enjoyed their interaction because it was really important for both their characters.
Yeah, I love the face touching. I love that she touches everyone's face. Like
I hate it so much. I hate it so much, Minhas. No, stop
that's
it.
so funny. I like it's so intimate. I love that. But
I liked it with him, but with everybody else, I'm like, it's creeping me out. Touch you. Touch you at all.
That's how Willie greets me every time he sees me.
As far as Rune goes, I think that was the weakest by far part of the entire second season. I did not particularly love the story of the Rune. it just was disjointed. I think that they could have went further if they had the time. I understand the constraint of what they had to do and what was the and more important storyline. They left us with a big gap between when the Dark Wizard leaves and when he just shows up all of a sudden, and then there's a final ending when nothing happens in between, nothing with the Easterlings. It was just all for naught, and it felt very rushed, and I did not like that. Gandalf's reveal felt very, I ain't gonna say rushed because it's long overdue, but felt rushed at the end. It was just like, I don't know who I am. I'm Gandalf.
Yeah, they've strung it out for so long and then really just rushed it at the end.
I do like that the Harfoots know what they're striving for, that history there. I loved that part of it. I love that they know, hey, we want to, figure out what we're doing. They left the wizard. I did like that part. Other than that, I did not like the second part, but I am interested to see where they're going to go in season 3 with the Easterlings. I think they're going to set that up to where the Easterlings are going to come into their own. We're going to get Kamul, who is the king of the Easterlings. They said we were once kings. I liked that. And all that. The Dark Wizard stuff, I think he's a blue, but they just need to tighten up with that.
So as far as Nori goes, okay, she had the most beautiful little speech at the end there, and it exemplified the sorrow in Tolkien, because that's another overarching theme, is that there's sorrow in the world. Not everything is good, it's sorrowful. There's beauty in sorrow too. Can I just read what she says? Because, oh my God, it gives me chills. I love this speech. And it's so true, because it's a harsh reality of all our lives, even the viewers. Some things are lost forever, no matter how hard we fight, how much it hurts, or how much our hearts yearn to put them back together, because this world's so much bigger than any of us, and sometimes the wind blown against us are just too strong. At times, we've just got to accept it. What is broke and won't fix, and all anybody can do is try and build something new.
Still gives me goosebumps.
Oh, goosebumps.
Yeah, still, even just
that is sorrow in its beauty, in the most beautiful form.
Definitely.
I love that.
No, I love that she, even like last season, she's like the one who kind of is the voice of, I want to say like inspiration, right? Just like the voice of like the inner dialogue of feeling. Like literally she is the feeling of everything. And I love that they had her end on this as well. Because it was beautiful. Like what a beautiful ending to the series. If we're going to talk about Tom Bombadil, the only qualm I had that he was training the wizards. I don't know how I feel about that. It's just, he's supposed to be like, whatever.
He's not involved.
I'm Tom Bombadil, I understand why. Again, I understand the creative choices that they're making. Like, I'm not going to be like, ugh, about it. I just like, I don't know how I feel about it. Yeah, that's like my only qualm.
My thing with Tom was, when I first saw it, I was like, okay. And everyone has their own depiction of Tom in their head. He's an enigmatic person. He's quirky. He's funny. He sings songs and all this stuff. I didn't think he sang enough, by the way. Just saying. But also, after the show ended and you saw the interview with the actors at the end, and I saw his actor, Rory Kinnear, right? He seemed so jolly and uplifting in his interview, and I was like, I want that in Tom. He was very subdued, very demure. You know what I mean? Like Tom was very.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I wasn't upset about it. I just I paused. That's all.
Tom's first episode was awesome. He was like, wow, this is the goat, and it's like funny, and like he names the goat Yarwin, and I was like, this is fantastic. I love this. The tree interaction, the way he drags out Gandalf, because we can say it now, just drags his ass out, and he's like, get out of the tree, dude. Like, I'm playing around.
Let's go.
I think the second time we see Tom, it just it kind of is like,
yeah, when he started saying like the Gandalf lines, it's like
they're falling into the trope from Peter Jackson's where they're reusing lines for different individuals, and it's something that like Christopher Tolkien adamantly disagreed with, and I'm hoping they see that like fans like myself and Lee and all of us here, and of course Knew Better, and like are really saying don't do it.
Yeah, because everything else you're doing is strong enough on its own. Like, exactly. And the show is stronger on its own without the like homage to the movies, because the movies are its own thing, right?
It's not even so much the movies. They want to connect to the books more. They want to connect back to the books as much as possible, but they're following how Peter Jackson did it, where it's like, we're going to we're going to write a different story because yes, this is a different form of media, but at the same time, maybe it's just better to leave those lines out and have us,
Well, especially because it just the way he used it was completely like out of context,
Out of
and
context.
it just felt
Wow.
like they put it in for the sake of having a recognizable
He said
quote.
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Give it a quick example of when they did it right and when they did it wrong. So just like when Lee just said, exactly, I 100% agree. When they used the, some that died deserve life. It's like it felt very. That this seems out of place. This seems
It
out
was
of
very
context.
contrived, and
Is Gandalf trying to like take some individuals out? I don't know.
First episode, or an example of when they did it, and it was perfect to me, was when Sauron says, "Always after a defeat, the shadow takes a new shape." And it's like, yes, this is what's happened.
Yeah,
and this
that's
relevant.
nice.
I was like, this feels right.
The tides of fate are
Tides
flowing.
of Fate.
You're going in or you're going out. That was like a good
one.
use of it.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that. I was like, that's dope because Galadriel says it later. And I do appreciate them being like, oh yeah, look it, this person's being spoken the line. They'll say it later. I did like, okay with that. But then there's this whole aspect to Lee's point, the misuse of it. I'm just like,
Yeah. Somebody needs to vet these lines and the ickiness of them. Because it's like, don't pull us out.
Put Willie in the room there and be like, see if he gets kicked out or not.
Pulled me out of Bombadil. That made me not. I'm like,
dude.
Now I'm over it with Bombadil.
I was gonna say it's a shame because like they'd done him so well in the first episode, and that just was so disappointing.
Yeah.
I really feel like the Rune storyline is pushing the themes that Tolkien tried to put into the Lord of the Rings. It's putting it out there more than any other storyline in the show. Whereas, as fans of the Silmarillion, we know that there's a lot of it's like perseverance in darkness and pushing towards that. But we have in Lord of the Rings the theme of the power of friendship. I mean, that sounds very cliche, but it is very much a theme of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The two lines that really stand out to me from the Rune storyline, and I'm not even going to go into Tom or the Hobbits or anything. I just want to talk about these two moments where it's the Dark Wizard saying that pity is not going to defeat Sauron. I was like, that's the best line that's been in the show so far, because literally it's the thing that ended up defeating Sauron. And to have that just thrown in as like a line in what people think is the worst storyline, and it was like it just had such an impact on me. I was like, wow.
It's the complete antithesis of like the themes of the story. So it was so powerful in that regard.
And the other bit is at the end when it's all said and done and Tom and Gandalf are hanging out again. And he's like, you wanted me to choose friendship over taking part in this fight, didn't you? That was the whole point. So, yes, it was. And if anything that Tom Bombadil can throw into a story is just like, oh, look at all this craziness going on. No, it was just about being a friend and getting through this part of your story, which is Tom Bombadil's MO. I mean, he's just there to be a funny guy, have all this amazing powers, and have you learn a lesson as you go forward into this dark and deep journey, which I'm sure Gandalf was going to get into. Putting Tom Bombadil in Rune is strange, whatever, but I got to see Tom Bombadil on the screen, and we got to have these great themes that Tolkien really pushes through in his stories. And if we read his letters, it's the most important things to him are friends and family and caring about one another and making the right decision in the face of hard choices. And it's to take the right path there. And we have Gandalf, character that we all know and love, who doesn't know these things yet, apparently. And he's learning them here. And to see him learning these things through his action without the divine inspiration of being Olorin and Fire Spirit, it's beautiful. And I hope that these kind of threads continue through the Rings of Power. I want to see the epic things. I want to see the battles. I want to see Sauron. I want to see the downfall, the War of the Last Alliance. But truly, I became a fan of Tolkien because of the themes of the Lord of the Rings. It's all about food and cheer and song and establishing a merrier world, which hopefully that's why we even have the hobbits in this. Is like, look at all this chaos, but look what can come if we just persevere through it and we can get our Suzat and our loving life in the Shire.
Plus, we got that banger of a song. So, I mean, that's
amazing. that where it ended, that storyline with Gandalf and Tom just singing together, I loved that so much. I had such a big smile on my face watching that
Mm.
scene. And it's like, I bet there's lots of people who'll be like, "Oh, that was really cheesy," and what. And I was like, whatever. It made me happy, so I liked it.
Quick question for our lore masters here. With the exception of the rhymes of lore, do we get Gandalf singing in any of our books?
I was just gonna say I really like Grumpy Gandalf from the books, but I don't think he sings a whole lot. No.
We know you want to get your final thoughts out. Let us know your final thoughts on the season and different parts
Yeah.
that you.
Oh my God. I have a lot of hopes for season 3. I know things are gonna get really, really sad a lot. I hope that they find a way to make it not crazy depressing all the time. Um, even though that might be a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like figure it out. Give me like one thing nice. But I think by season 5, I know this is like looking way to the future, and I think a lot of you probably will agree with this. It's gonna end with the last alliance battle and Isildur cutting off Sauron's finger. I think that's where the show has to end. Otherwise, it'll be too sad. It'll be too sad all the time.
What? Elrond has so many happy times coming up for him. What are you?
Only the best times for Elrond. No, I feel so bad for Elrond.
I can't
I love him
wait.
so much. Yeah.
I love all the darkness, so bring it on, baby. Bring
Yeah.
it
You
on.
know.
Oh no, I love it too, but I feel like I'll get depressed.
So you rather it end there, so it's like ends with Sauron being defeated, the rings claimed, people are still alive, rather than ending with the Gladden Fields.
Yeah, no, it has to end with
Yes.
hope. It has
Yeah.
to end with hope.
Mhm. Like this episode did.
Well,
Yeah.
next
Hope,
season is
hope.
probably going to be the War of the Elves. So get ready for another
Yeah.
ride.
Yeah.
For another round.
I'm okay with
Sure.
2 seasons more of sadness and then 1 season of things get better. Okay. Like
Okay,
at least
okay.
eventually at the end, way down the road, things are gonna be okay.
So my hopes, maybe it's a hot take, but my hope is so I'm thinking, I don't know if the KnewBetta's next season at the end, I'm not too sure, but I'm thinking when it does happen, I think when Isildur and fam flee with all their treasures, I think they will take, of course, all the treasures that we know, but I think they are going to take a very special plant called galenas with them. And I really hope we see that, because that is, especially if they're hearkening back to Peter Jackson so much and all these other things, like smoking and toking was a huge part of those films. And I'm not just being on brand here, it just is what it is. So I hope that they figure that out when, the proto-hobbits get to the Suzad or the Shire or whatever. I'm hoping that they incorporate, galenas and Westman's weed and pipeweed. I really hope that they show this in the show as the TolkienToker.
Yes. That's
See what you did there.
Yeah. TM. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's tobacco, all right? Don't worry about it.
I know it's tobacco.
I'm just
Hey, I
kidding.
toke tobacco. You could toke tobacco.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just, my concern with that is because I know even 20 years ago with the films, they considered showing them smoking all the time, and they actually filmed some of the scenes with Gandalf eating toffees instead of smoking because they were like, oh god, we put smoking in because it's bad influence, and that was 20 years ago, and like smoking is like even less of a thing now. So I don't know like how
They make it look cool with their pipes. Yeah.
yeah like do they want to influence kids to take up?
Well, they got me, so
Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 3. It's gonna be the War of the Elves. I hope they really compound that with everything going on in Numenor. I do hope Rune's story continues. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than others. To Tim's point, I think that they've done a good job of getting Gandalf to where a point I can enjoy the character. Hopefully they continue on with him staying in Rune. It's one of the things I don't want to see is him getting involved in the main story until the end, after the War of the Last Alliance. But I'm curious about what's going to happen with the Falahides too.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited and hopeful going on to the 3rd series now, because they have shown that they can do it to that level, to that higher standard.
Yeah.
So I'm just so excited for what's to come. And and like the things that we know are going to come, like Anarian. Finally, we've had his name teased a few times,
Yeah.
and it's like I've never been like, it's like, oh yeah, Anarian, yeah, okay, he's fine. And now because of this show, I'm like, oh my god, Anarian.
We have to see him.
Because because they've been teasing him. I'm like so desperate to see Anarian now. So yeah, I'm really excited for series 3. It can't come soon enough for me. I just want more of this, because yeah, the stuff they did well, as they say, they just did incredibly well.
I've enjoyed The Rings of Power season 2, and I'm looking forward to it. Even if it was bad, I would have been looking forward to season 3. Let's be real, I'm a glutton for this stuff. I will watch every adaptation. I watched I'll take it back. I haven't really rewatched the Hobbit trilogy, but every other adaptation. I love the cartoons. I love the show, and I'm enjoying the changes. A lot of people you see online where they're saying that as a lore purist, as a Tolkien purist, I dislike the changes that's made, and I've really enjoyed it. You know what? I've read this story how many times now, and the fact that I get to watch it go, oh, what's going to happen? It's very exciting for me. With the exception of like egregious things, I have no issues with the changes. I'll be, quote me here, whatever, hang me up on a Celebrimbor banner. I think the changes in Eregion with the rings was better than what is listed in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings and what is put in of The Rings of Power in the Third Age. It's more enjoyable as a viewer, or would be as a reader. It was so good seeing the manipulation of Sauron in live effect and the powers. That scene where he walks outside and it turns from light into the battle of the Siege of Eregion was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on the screen. And one of my favorite moments in any Tolkien adaptation ever, and it does not happen in the books. So what? Good is good.
Yeah.
I hope we open up with the banner. Everybody knows what banner I'm talking about.
Oh my
I
god.
think that needs to be displayed. I think it needs to show
think
the
that'd be
cruelty
amazing.
of
Oh, I
Sauron.
thought we were safe
Like-
from it.
No,
No, I
like,
think they need
that
to
is the
include it.
first shot of series 3, just setting the tone, I think would be amazing.
And just Sauron just showing his strength, his army, the elves playing defense. They talked about, what are we doing? Playing defense, offense? It makes more sense for them to play defense. We know kind of what happens as lore people, and it makes more sense. And hopefully at some point we get the Battle of the Guaflo, where it's at the turning point on Sauron where he has to go. But the most important thing I think that needs to happen, and we see Sauron get Feanor's hammer, we need the creation of the One Ring, and we need the creation of Barad-dûr. We need Mordor to be fortified and made into that place. That place. We need the Nazgul to get their rings. These are the most important things that need to happen in season 3, and that's what I'm looking forward to. We need to see the Haradrim. We need to see Umbar. We need to see the Easterlings in full force, and we need Kamul. And I think we'll get that. I think we'll get maybe some Men of the Mountain. Maybe one of them might get a ring. Maybe some of the Dunlendings might get a ring, maybe one or two. We need to see these kingdoms of men really come into their own. Maybe one of the men of the Southland, and then we have our 9, and 3 we know are Númenórean lords, and 1, whether he's a Númenórean lord or not, is going to become the Witch King. I'm hoping it is Theo, but that could change. They're not making it as straightforward as I thought in the first season. So that is my thoughts on season 3. Thank you so much, guys,
Thanks,
for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys, man. Awesome conversation with you guys. Kali, take it away.
All right, so those are our thoughts for season 2 of Rings of Power. Thank you, everyone, for following along with Voices of Arda and Pod One's podcast over the last month as we covered it. And we look forward to bringing you more awesome content like this for season 3, which will hopefully not take another 2 whole years. Maybe next year, maybe. But all right, thank you, everyone, for listening.